I formed a pact with the mightiest orc of them all, the tiger orc, but I despised his savage roughness. Our coexistence was utterly discordant. After the bonding, I treated him with icy indifference, constantly hurling insults, resenting him for tearing me apart from my beloved fox orc. Later, the fox conspired with my cousin to lure me onto the snow-capped mountains, leaving me to perish in a wolf pack. At the funeral, that scheming couple set a trap to strangle my Beastman and seize my inheritance. The savage tiger I'd once scorned dragged his mangled leg for miles, tearing into that pair like a rabid beast. Finally, he collapsed before my coffin, his body riddled with blade wounds. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the year of our bonding ceremony. The male fox showed his injured arm, tearfully accusing my big tiger of bullying him. I shoved him aside, cradled my tiger's paw with teary eyes, and whispered shakily, "Does your paw hurt from hitting him? Let me kiss it better." 1. Memories from a past life. It was Ronan collapsing before my coffin, his body riddled with stab wounds, 50-some stab wounds, each one straight through. The hand-bearing bone-deep gashes reached trembling toward my face, only to withdraw at the last moment. "You always hated mess. I won't stain you now, or you'd be cross with me again, Faye. Don't be afraid, I've avenged you." With those words, he seemed drained of all strength, closing his eyes as he reverted to his beast form. The massive tiger curled up beside the coffin, keeping silent vigil over me, my eyes red from crying. I kept murmuring, "Ronan, you're the most foolish tiger I've ever known." When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in the year we first made our covenant. The foxman Maverick rolled up his sleeve to reveal a wound, putting on a pitiful voice with tearful eyes as he falsely accused, "Faye, Ronan hit me." The broad-shouldered Ronan, with his intimidating scowl, snapped in frustration, "I didn't." Seeing my reddened eyes and prolonged silence, he hung his head and muttered, "Faye, I really didn't." A turbulent mix of sorrow and bitterness churned in my heart. Something tugged at the tender spot in my heart, sending a pang of inexplicable pain. Maverick curled his lips discreetly before sidling up against me. I dodged sideways to avoid him. The fox-like man face-planted spectacularly, eating dirt like a champ. Ignoring Maverick's dramatic posing on the floor, I cradled that large hand with trembling fingers, my eyes red-rimmed as I whispered, "Did your hand hurt from hitting him? Let me kiss it better." The near 2-meter-tall man stood frozen in place, his sharp eyes brimming with helpless confusion. 2. On this day in my past life, I'd slapped Ronan without hearing explanations or distinguishing right from wrong, calling him vicious and a bully who picked on the weak. A tiger beastman at the top of the food chain, openly oppressing a delicate fox beastman. After scolding him, I still felt furious, so I dragged Maverick by the hand to my father to demand justice for him. Seeing how upset I was, Ronan went out to buy my favorite cupcake to cheer me up, but he walked straight into an ambush. When he finally escaped, a vicious scar now ran across his face, making his already intimidating features even more terrifying. Later, I'd constantly use that scar to taunt him about his looks, claiming he wasn't good enough for me. Over time, that fierce and domineering tiger became timid and couldn't hold his head up around me. Thinking about this made my heart ache with lingering pain. Maverick scrambled up from the ground and tried his old trick of clinging to me again. Those teary fox-like eyes glistened as she whimpered, "Faye, my poor bottom hurts from the fall," sobbing theatrically before me. He shot Ronan a resentful sidelong glance. The mistress was getting shamelessly bold in front of the lawful wife. How dare he? I threw myself into Ronan's arms, his broad frame completely enveloping me. I felt like a tiny accessory next to his towering presence. "Honey, someone's trying to cuckold you. Aren't you going to do something about it?" 3. After Maverick stormed off, Ronan gripped my shoulders to push me away. His voice strained, "Maverick's gone now. You can stop this charade." Ronan thought my earlier actions were just an act, just to make Maverick jealous. My throat clenched as if blocked, rendering me speechless. In my past life, I obeyed my family's arrangement to form a bond with Ronan. Father said Ronan was an exceptionally powerful beastman who could protect me for life. My resistance failed, and I resented Ronan deeply for tearing Maverick and me apart. I despised that brutish, untamed tiger, so rough and incapable of tenderness. In contrast, the dazzling, alluring fox Maverick was gentle and knew just how to charm me, but that fox conspired with my cousin, ensnared me with his wiles, and plotted to send me to my grave. As the wolves tore her apart, Vale leaned into Maverick's arms and sneered at me, "Faye, you're utterly pathetic. Maverick never cared for you, not even for a second. Moron." Maverick pulled Vale close, tilting her chin as he murmured, "Eyes on me, sweetheart, not her." The next second, the two were lost in a passionate kiss right before my eyes. At my funeral, Maverick and Vale set an inescapable trap, aiming to eliminate Ronan and seize my inheritance. Ronan charged headlong into the trap, fully aware it was a setup. Longswords, stun batons, and specialized orc tranquilizer guns. The 50-foot-tall tiger dragged its crippled leg for 2 miles, savagely mauling that wretched couple in a frenzy. My heart ached unbearably as I gazed at this man with piercing eyes and wounded expression. Ronan, I'll love you wholeheartedly for the rest of my life. I walked over, took Ronan's hand, and smiled up at him. Ronan, I'm craving cupcakes. Would you come with me to get some? For Ronan could never say no to my requests. Using the excuse of changing dresses, I secretly had bodyguards tail them, with me around. Let's see who dares mess with my big teddy bear, standing at 198 centimeters. Ronan has an imposing physique. The size difference between us was like an adult and a child. Walking down the street, we kept drawing curious glances. This was an era of peaceful coexistence between humans and beastfolk, where a human could only form one lifelong contract with a beastkin, a cat-eared boy, a dopey-grinned puppy fawning over its owner, an alluring snake charmer, and a muzzled white wolf reverting to beast form for its rider, watching the girl laughing joyfully atop the wolf's back. I turned to gaze longingly at Ronan. Ronan's true form puts that scruffy wolf to shame. Ronan averted his eyes, pretending not to notice the hopeful look in mine. After a pause, seeing my disappointment, he muttered awkwardly in a softened voice, "Forgot to wear the muzzle today." Warmth surged through my heart. On our way back after buying cupcakes, our car was ambushed. The attackers were a squad of well-trained mercenary orcs. Ronan pinned me in the car. "Stay put. No matter what happens, don't open the door or get out." I tugged at Ronan's sleeve and looked up pleadingly. "Promise me you won't get hurt." Ronan shifted back to his beast form, slamming his tiger paws down as he stood guard by the car with a menacing growl. The bodyguards lurking in the shadows joined the fray. Half an hour later, the mercenary beastmen were subdued. The rat-like beastman pinned to the ground glared with sinister eyes, his mouth glinting with the cold sheen of metal. "Damn it, he's about to pull a dirty trick on Ronan." I flung the car door open and lunged at Ronan, shouting, "Look out." A slender silver needle whizzed past my cheek. Ronan shielded me firmly in his arms, his sharp eyes glinting with frosty intensity. My foot slammed into the rat beastman's chest, grinding down mercilessly. The rat beastman shot me a sidelong glance. "Miss, didn't we agree on this beforehand? Why aren't you following the script?" Ronan froze mid-motion, a flicker of conflict flashing in his eyes. Just as quickly, it melted into self-mockery. "Faye, I know you despise me. If you want to avenge Maverick, there's no need to put yourself in harm's way like this." 5. I was fuming at that damn rat lying on the ground, always getting framed for shit I didn't do. I ordered my bodyguards to take these rat-like beastmen in for thorough interrogation. For secure anti-piracy document bots, choose Xiaohu, reliable service. No scams guaranteed. Ronan pressed his lips into a thin line, his expression frosty as he refused to acknowledge me. I secretly pinched myself to squeeze out a few tears, looking at Ronan with puppy-dog eyes. "Ronan, I think I sprained my ankle. It hurts." Ronan's expression wavered, yet he still avoided my gaze, limping toward him with reddened eyes. I repeated, "Ronan, I hurt my ankle protecting you. You owe me for this." Ronan walked over and effortlessly scooped me up in his arms. Back in the car, Ronan removed my shoes and socks, his large hands enveloping my petite feet. "Does it hurt here?" Though I might have been exaggerating a bit, I'd actually sprained my ankle from running too hard earlier. Ronan crouched down, making the car seem a size too small for his frame. In my past life, I resented Ronan's rough ways till my dying breath, always wishing he'd show tenderness like Maverick did, yet now his warm palms cradle my ankles with indescribable gentleness as he massages them. Perhaps sensing the intensity of my gaze, Ronan looked up. Seeing my reddened eyes, he panicked instantly. "Did I hurt you by being too rough?" The more flustered Ronan became, the heavier my heart felt, like being caught in a downpour, drenched to the bone. I must have been blind in my past life to have caused Ronan so much pain. I threw myself into Ronan's arms, clinging tightly to his neck and murmuring softly, "It doesn't hurt, Ronan. Please believe me. I swear I had nothing to do with what happened this time. How could I bear to hurt you again?" After parking in the garage, Ronan carried me all the way back inside. 6. His embrace was steady, with taut, powerful arms securely shielding me against his chest. As I reached the garden courtyard, I saw Vale and Maverick engaged in a tussle. Vale was toying with the fluffy fox tail in his grasp. Maverick tilted his head back, his expression a blend of agony and ecstasy. The loose collar revealed fresh lash marks. TSK, these two lovebirds really know how to have fun. The memory of Maverick from my past life using those wounds to coax me made my stomach churn. Absolutely disgusting. Ronan tried to follow my gaze. I cupped his face in both hands, turning his head back. "Don't look, sweetheart. It'll burn your eyes." A rosy haze crept across the bronze skin. I watched with amusement as the big tiger showed an uncharacteristically shy expression. After intense interrogation, the captured rat beastmen finally confessed the truth. The mastermind behind their crimes was Vale. I threw myself into Ronan's arms and lipped up. "See, I told you it wasn't me. Why would I ever hurt my own husband? I'm way too young to resign myself to widowhood." Ronan obediently apologized. "I'm sorry. I misunderstood you." I climbed onto the chair and planted a loud kiss on his cheek. You're forgiven. When I told my father about the incident, he slammed the table in rage. How dare they bully my daughter? Faye, just wait. I'll make sure justice is served. In my past life, after being forced to marry Ronan, my relationship with my father hit rock bottom. I resented him for forcing me into things I hated under the guise of loving me. Later, he died in a car crash that sent him over a cliff. In the midst of running away from home, I never got to see him one last time. At the funeral, Ronan flew into a rage. His menacing scar and icy tone scared me to tears. Though Maverick and Vale pretended to defend me, they were secretly driving a wedge between Ronan and me. Looking back now, I'm certain that bastard couple had something to do with my father's death. My father confronted my uncle with evidence and cut off financial support to his company. 7. Second uncle flew into a rage and slapped Vale hard across the face. With an ingratiating smile, he leaned in after the slap. Faye, second uncle has already disciplined Vale. About the company matter, I scoffed, curling my lips in mockery. Second uncle, your daughter wanted Ronan dead. You think a slap settles this? Faye, Vale is still your sister after all. Trying to guilt trip me, not a chance, uncle. You were adopted by my grandfather, strictly speaking. Vale and I share no blood relation whatsoever. My second uncle was adopted by my grandfather, spoiled rotten since childhood. He's never lifted a finger, a complete good-for-nothing. Not long after Grandpa passed away, my second uncle squandered his inheritance and ended up deep in debt. His failing business constantly needed my father's financial support, hitting him up for money every other day. My father went above and beyond, practically running a charity for them. Yet that father-daughter pair remained insatiable, secretly resenting us and calling us hypocritical snobs. Blinded by greed, Vale orchestrated the deaths of my father, Ronan, and me in a scheme to seize our family fortune. Seeing my unyielding stance, second uncle darkened his face and coldly ordered Vale dragged to the ancestral hall for disciplinary punishment, still seething with rage. I grabbed Vale's head and smashed it violently against a pillar. In our past life, she scarred Ronan's face. Unbelievable, her face remained completely unscathed. Vale's eyes darkened like a sewer-dwelling snake. Faye, don't celebrate too soon. I flashed a sweet smile and theatrically patted my chest. Oh, I'm so scared. I absolutely adore that look of hers, seething with hatred yet utterly powerless against me. I had my men keep a close watch on Vale in the shadows. 8. Just as expected, Maverick sneaked into the ancestral hall under cover of night to deliver medicine to Vale. According to my subordinate's report, Vale flew into a violent rage, beating and kicking Maverick while calling him worthless. Vale frantically grabbed the candle sticking out of the incense burner. Scalding candle wax dripped relentlessly onto Maverick's bare chest. Who would have thought this unhinged couple had such peculiar tastes? The next day, Maverick strutted before me in garish attire like a peacock displaying its plumage. Faye, you haven't been reaching out to me lately. You used to message me on WeChat every single day. Vale's in a mood, sending Maverick to reel me in. Ronan's face was stony, his gaze icy. Clinging to Ronan's arm, I shot Maverick a frosty glare. Has no one told you how pathetic it is to be the other man? Maverick looked wounded. But you were the one who kept coming to me before. Ronan made a show of withdrawing his arm. I hastily explained, I was just hungry before. But now that I'm well fed, I wouldn't touch your stale leftovers. Maverick froze for a moment before saying, Faye, what nonsense are you spouting? You promised you'd break the bond with Ronan and give me a proper status. Ronan pulled his hand away and left without looking back. Oh no, Ronan misunderstood again. All my hard work trying to smooth things over just went down the drain. Maverick, I was blind before, but now I see clearly. A loser like you could never measure up to my man. Stop trying to drive a wedge between us. Maverick came over and held me tight. Faye, what's been going on with you lately? I felt sick to my stomach, kicking and thrashing violently. During the struggle, I spotted Ronan hiding behind a pillar. I can't even, that scheming two-faced Maverick. I hurried back into the room. 9. Ronan sat on the couch, his massive frame making the furniture look comically small. My heart softened as I walked over, crouching down to gently cradle his face in my hands, forcing Ronan to meet my gaze. Ronan, please don't be angry, okay? There's absolutely nothing between Maverick and me. His lips pressed into a thin line as he grumbled. He hugged you just now. The jealous big cat had this adorably sulky charm about him. I couldn't help but smirk mischievously. Well, he started it by tempting me first. Ronan lowered his eyelids softly, his voice heavy. I know I'm not as good-looking as him, nor your type. I softened my voice to coax him. To me, you're the most handsome. So go ahead, tempt me too. Ronan's eyes lit up instantly, pinning me against the wall in one swift move as he undid his shirt buttons with one hand, ripped with well-defined abs, perfectly chiseled 8-pack, not an ounce of fat, a ruggedly handsome face with a wild charm, his swaggering moves oozing undeniable bad boy vibes. That's totally unfair. My face burned as my gaze wandered over Ronan's torso. The air grew thick. Faye, get a grip. Don't act like you've never seen anything before. I cleared my throat, struggling to maintain composure. While I'm quite taken right now, I still prefer you in your true form, a big fluffy tiger. It looks so soft and cuddly. I cooed in a sweet, pleading voice. Just let me take a peek, just a tiny one. Ronan turned his head away and obediently shifted back to his original form. I tugged his ears and rolled around on his snow-white belly. The tiger's massive frame completely enveloped me. From the outside, no one could spot the human girl beneath the tiger's bulk. I ran my fingers through Ronan's glossy fur, marveling at its silky smoothness. 10. I tugged his ears, stroked his tail, and curiously examined the tiger's fangs. Ronan, your fur is so warm and cozy. Slowly, Ronan's gaze took on a different meaning, blunt, fervent. It's making me uneasy. Ronan shifted back to human form, his dark eyes swallowing me whole. Faye, didn't anyone warn you not to pull a tiger's tail? Unconsciously, I licked my parched lips as my heart pounded wildly. Ronan's gaze grew darker. The premonition in my heart grew stronger. I gently closed my eyes. A wave of scorching breath brushed against my cheek. Then my lips met something tender. Moments later, the air grew thin, my head spun dizzily, and my heart threatened to leap from my chest. Feather-like kisses trailed down the neck. The fire spread with unstoppable fury. Memories of past life pain flashed through me as my eyes flew open. Hands urgently pushing against Ronan. No, Ronan stopped dead in his tracks, staring at me blankly, though it wasn't exactly considerate to stop at this moment. All destruction, no cleanup, but I was genuinely terrified. In our past life, Vale drugged Ronan in an attempt to publicly expose their affair, driving a permanent wedge between us and forcing Ronan out of the household. By cruel twist of fate, Ronan caught me passing by instead, ravaged by the drug's effects. Ronan became brutish and unrecognizable. He clutched me desperately, murmuring with obsessive intensity, Faye, Faye, like a shattered porcelain doll. I kept blacking out again and again. By my calculations, it's nearly time for Vale to drug Ronan. This time, I'll make sure Vale and Maverick learn what it means to hoist with their own petard, according to my past life's memories. Vale will drug Ronan during my father's birthday celebration, deliberately drawing guests' attention to turn our family into the laughingstock of high society. 11. Using me as an excuse, Vale had her servants lure Ronan into a room filled with aphrodisiac incense. When Ronan sensed something amiss, he brute-forced his way out and bumped into me passing by. This time, I turned Vale's accomplices beforehand and laced her room with an even stronger dose. Then I dragged Ronan to eavesdrop by the wall. Vale's eyes burned with hatred, her face contorted in a vicious snarl. I'll make Faye taste the bitterness of utter ruin and nail her to the pillar of shame. Maverick poured tea for Vale, fawningly massaging her shoulders. Sweetheart, don't be angry. Rage gives you wrinkles. Vale scalded her tongue on the tea and lashed out at Maverick. You're utterly useless. How can you still not handle that idiot Faye after all this time? Maverick's fox ears and tail emerged, his sly eyes glinting with mischief. No clue what's gotten into her lately. Instead of seeking me out, she's orbiting that brute Ronan. Vale gripped Maverick's chin with a roguish grin. Guess you're just not skilled enough. Maverick bit his lower lip coyly. You'd know best whether I'm skilled or not, wouldn't you? The moment those words hung in the air, their bodies tangled like twisted rope. As the drug took effect, their movements grew increasingly frantic. The scene was getting increasingly outrageous. I found the perfect angle and set up the camera. These two crazy lovebirds really know how to have fun. Compared to Ronan, Maverick's fox game is downright pathetic. Just as I was engrossed in watching, a large hand blocked my view. Be good, don't look. Staring too much will give you styes. His warm breath brushed against my ear, and flushed by the moment, my face turned crimson in an instant. I gazed at Ronan, blushing like a hopeless fool. 12. My heart remained unsettled long after eavesdropping and returning. Back home, I finally blurted out despite my restraint, Aren't you curious, Ronan, how I knew Vale would set a trap for you today? Shahubot prevents document forgery. For bookfinding bots, choose Shahu, reliable heavy checkmark and scam-free. Ronan ruffled my hair gently. No need. You'll tell me when you're ready. A surge of warmth flooded my chest as I threw myself into Ronan's arms, wrapping mine tightly around his neck. Ronan lowered his head and wrapped his arms around my waist. Ronan, I had a nightmare where you were drugged. Did I? No, you escaped. And then you found me. Ronan held me so tightly it felt like he wanted to fuse me into his very bones. That's good, he murmured, tilting my head up with a slight nasal tone. I whispered, Ronan, you know, in my dream, you hurt me so badly. Ronan's face froze, his whole body radiating helpless panic. After a long pause, he stammered out a quiet, I'm sorry. I accepted his apology. Just as I stood to leave, Ronan firmly held me down. His hand rested on the small of my back. After you pushed me away last time, I went and studied. I froze for a moment, catching the hidden meaning in Ronan's words. My face burned as I mumbled, I'm still scared. Ronan grasped my hand. You can say stop any time. I couldn't resist his charms and finally relented. That night, I experienced firsthand the domineering strength of the tiger Beastman. I was tossed about like a rag doll at his mercy. My sobs came in broken, discordant whimpers. We reveled wildly through the night. I woke up the next morning with an aching back that refused to cooperate. 13. Ronan wrapped his arm around my waist and effortlessly hauled me out of the blankets with one hand. Eat something first, then you can go back to sleep. I shot Ronan a look that was half annoyed, half amused. You wicked hypocrite. After feeding me porridge, Ronan pulled out a tissue and gently wiped my mouth. His rough fingertips brushed against my flushed lips. Faye, don't look at me like that. I noticed something was off about him and quietly averted my gaze. Total creep. The dull ache in my waist warned me not to make any sudden moves. I abruptly changed the subject. Where's that video we shot yesterday? Ronan got up and handed me the camera. What's your next move? A wicked grin spread across my face. This kind of treasure deserves an audience, but now's not the right time. Dropping to my knees with a pout, I cooed at Ronan. Hubby, I'll need to play along with Maverick for a bit. Consider this advance notice. Promise you won't get jealous. Ronan pinned me down with a reluctant grumble. Then how do you plan to make it up to me? Wrapping my arms around his neck, I whispered. Name your price. I'll give you anything you want. In the following weeks, I orchestrated chance encounters with Maverick, carefully cultivating the illusion of unresolved feelings. The bait was taken sooner than expected. At the family gathering, Maverick rose with theatrical gravitas. There's something I must confess. My conscience won't rest until I come clean. Vale looked at me triumphantly, wearing an expression of certain victory. I've been infatuated with Faye for ages, and she feels the same way. We've been secretly together for quite some time now. The father seated at the head of the table darkened his expression as murmurs spread among the clansmen. I chuckled. Maverick, you've got the wrong leading lady. The one you're having an affair with is Vale, not me. Vale choked back tears. Sis, I know you've never liked me, but you can't just make baseless accusations. I'm still an unmarried maiden. I pressed the couple. Are you seriously claiming I'm the one who had an affair with Maverick? Maverick nodded. Faye, at this point, I don't want to keep hiding the truth anymore. Vale, sis, one should own up to their actions. Having an affair isn't that big of a deal. I smiled and didn't argue further. The LCD screen in the hall began playing footage of Maverick and Vale. 14. The movements were explicit, the sounds downright embarrassing. Vale grabbed her hair, screaming hysterically, "Turn it off. Shut it down now." No one paid any attention to her words. The premium Blu-ray edition captured their every move in crystal clarity. The onlookers flushed, casting knowing glances between Vale and Maverick. Their exploits would become the talk of the town by tomorrow. Vale stormed up to me. Faye, how dare you play me like this? I scoffed. Seriously, you can stab me in the back, but I can't fight back. She actually thinks the world owes her something. That lunatic's logic is downright inhuman. Out-argued, Vale raised her hand to strike. Ronan stepped in like a wall, intercepting Vale's swing, bullying my wife right in front of me. You think I'm dead or what? Maverick, standing 5 meters away, yelled furiously at Ronan. Let her go right now. Dude, if you take one more step closer, I'll respect you as a real man. After the leaked video went viral, Vale and Maverick's scandal became the talk of the town in their circle. To silence the gossip, Uncle Urba had no choice but to hold a bonding ceremony for Vale and Maverick. 15. On the day of the ceremony, I made a special trip just to mess with Vale. Vale gritted her teeth, face contorted with the urge to strangle me right then and there. I smirked and soothed her. Those who achieve greatness must master patience. Vale, you owe me, and I'll make you repay it 1,000-fold, with my interference in this lifetime. Vale never got a chance to lay a finger on my father. Seeing me reach out to him, my father would flash his pearly whites every day, grinning from ear to ear, nothing like the iron-fisted patriarch people described him to be. And here he comes, trotting over to my courtyard for dinner right after work. Ronan was bustling about in the kitchen. His bulging pecs stretched the pink tough guy apron into a crop top. My dad appeared silently behind me. Told you the old man's got good taste. I didn't respond. Without his matchmaking, Ronan and I would have been like parallel lines that never meet. I never imagined I'd fall for a rough-around-the-edges wild man until I met Ronan. Son-in-law, make me an extra pork knuckle stew. Ronan walked over and casually tipped the half-eaten peach from me, polishing off the rest in a few bites. Go easy on snacks. Dinner's almost ready. Dad, I've got your braised pork knuckle simmering early for you. During dinner, Father started reminiscing about Ronan's childhood. He leaned in with a grin. Faye, do you know why I arranged your soul bond with Ronan? Ronan flushed crimson, deftly placing a deboned fish fillet in my bowl while skillfully steering the conversation elsewhere. Late at night, Ronan gazed at the girl sleeping beside him, her face streaked with tears, lips puckered in a pout. His heart melted completely. After dinner, a tipsy Faye clung to Ronan, lifting her hazy eyes to ask repeatedly, "Ronan, be honest, when did you first fall for me?" 16. When Ronan hesitated to answer, Faye nuzzled against his chest and mumbled, "Tell me, and I'll tell you too." The hands around my throat tightened relentlessly. The girl's clear voice trembled with tears. "Ronan, you know what? I had this horrible nightmare where my dad was murdered. And so were you. They stabbed you over and over, even shattered your leg. God, it must have been agony." Scorching tears soaked through the fabric. "Ronan, you're the most clueless tiger I've ever met." A pale, delicate hand gently cupped Ronan's face. Tear streaks glistened on the exquisite face, lashes clumping together from moisture. "Ronan, I'm not worth it." Ronan's heart ached with a sharp, throbbing pain as if it had been torn open. He held Faye tightly and whispered, "How could you not be worth it? You're the one I've loved for so long. As long as you're Faye, you'll always be worth everything." Faye cradled Ronan's face tenderly, her lips brushing against his in a feather-like kiss, straddling him. Her glistening tears traced delicate paths down her cheeks as her fingers dug desperately into Ronan's shoulders. Ronan shattered her unease and fear with his presence. The tiger growled possessively against her ear, murmuring repeatedly, "Don't be afraid, Faye, dreams can't hurt you." With trembling fingers, Faye instinctively caressed Ronan's cheek, murmuring breathlessly, "My big tiger, I'm so in love with you." When exactly had Faye first taken root in his heart? Ronan traced it back to that unexpected warmth in the gladiatorial arena. Back then, Faye was just a little girl with her hair in playful oxhorn braids. 17. Choose Little Tiger Bot for document anti-piracy, reliable and trustworthy book scanning service that won't let you down. Back then, the relationship between orcs and humans was unequal. The arena served as an entertainment venue for the wealthy, blood and carnage are the spectators' adrenaline. That day, Ronan faced a fully grown male lion as his opponent. Not only did he lose the match, but he was also left battered and bruised. A little girl with pigtails handed him a piece of chocolate and said in a sweet, childish voice, "Big brother, blow on it to make the ouchie fly away." The little girl tugged at the man's sleeve, pleading softly with her father to save the battered young boy. The man paid to free him, rescuing the youth from that living hell of endless fighting. The man even secured him a job, but Ronan politely declined. Ronan said he wanted to venture out into the world and change the fate of the beast folk. The man clapped him on the shoulder with a hearty laugh, admiration written all over his face. "That's the spirit, lad." On the day of his departure, Ronan made a special trip to bid farewell to Faye. Tiny hands wrapped around Ronan's finger as the child's earnest face lipped up. "Big brother, promise you'll stay safe and don't get hurt again." Ronan gave a solemn nod. The days of striving and struggling were exhausting and bitter. Faye's messages were like fuel to Ronan's soul. When they met again, the little girl with oxhorn braids had blossomed into an elegant young woman. Her faint smile at the corner of her lips sent tingles through one's heart. Faye passed by without recognizing Ronan. Ronan picked up Faye's dropped handbag and received a thank you meant for a stranger. During a battle for orc-human equality, Ronan sustained severe injuries while protecting Faye's father. Bleeding out and slipping into unconsciousness, Ronan murmured, "If you get hurt, she'll be heartbroken." Ronan could never bear to see Faye in tears. 18. That's when Faye's father glimpsed Ronan's true feelings. This young man was willing to lay down his life for his daughter. Ronan is highly skilled in combat, righteous in character, and exceptionally outstanding. Faye's father grew more and more pleased with what he saw. The noble and upright tiger completely outshone that freeloading fox of a man, and so, Faye's father quietly played matchmaker, single-handedly orchestrating Faye and Ronan's union. The girl he'd secretly admired for years finally became his wife. Fortune smiled upon Ronan, leaving him dizzy with disbelief at his own happiness. On their wedding day, Ronan kept reminding himself to maintain composure and dignity. Beneath the calm surface raged a storm of emotions, trembling hands beneath the wedding gown, a month of sleepless nights, terrified this might just be a dream. But Faye's words shattered all of Ronan's joy. Faye explained she married Ronan at her father's behest, to repay a debt, and to set an example for peaceful coexistence between beast folk and humans. A bone-chilling cold seized Ronan, spreading through his veins like liquid ice. He advanced toward Faye uncontrollably, gripping her shoulders as his piercing eyes bored into her. Ronan desperately wanted to ask, what did Maverick have that he didn't? Yet in the end, he couldn't bring himself to shout at Faye. Fortunately, clumsy sincerity was met with fiery passion. Ronan finally reunited with Faye. After lying low for a while, Vale and Maverick started causing trouble again, just like in our past lives. They schemed to lure me onto the snowy mountain. I'll play along with this game. 19. As we climbed the mountain, Ronan noticed my unease and enveloped my small hand in his large, warm palm. I buried myself in Ronan's embrace, so tiny in his arms. Ronan, this is where I died in that nightmare. His arms suddenly tightened around me. Those wolves, their bites hurt like hell. Ronan cupped my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. Staring at this face, I gradually calmed down. Ronan's gaze toward Vale and Maverick turned icy and murderous. Don't be afraid, Faye. I'll avenge you. A sudden pang hit the bridge of my nose. Faye, don't worry. I've avenged you. In his past life, Ronan stood drenched in blood yet gazed with tenderness, as if afraid to disturb my slumber in the coffin. The tragedy of our past lives shall never repeat. I'll make that wretched couple reap what they've sown. Vale sprinkled wolf-attracting pheromones over both Ronan and me. Little did they know. I'd prepared scent neutralizers and tripled the dose on her. Meanwhile, Vale even gave my uncle some shady advice on how to deal with my father using underhanded tactics. Faye, I'll soon reclaim everything that rightfully belongs to me, belongs to her. The sheer audacity of that woman, Ronan, and I just watched her lose it quietly, seeing us deviate from her script. Vale threw a tantrum. You'll be torn apart by wolves soon. Can't you at least act scared? Maverick soothed her. Babe, they're probably too terrified to scream. Ugh. What a pair of geniuses they are. The wolf pack is coming. They rushed past me and Ronan, heading straight for Vale and Maverick. The spectators became the spectacle. 20. Gleaming fangs sank into Vale's arm. She screamed in agony, her face drained of color. Faye, save me. Please save me. I don't want to die. In my past life, I had begged her the same way. All I got in return were mockery and cold stares. Seeing I wouldn't help her, Vale tried emotional blackmail. Faye, I'm your sister. You can't be this heartless. Don't you like Maverick? Save me, and I'll give him to you. I couldn't help but laugh at Vale's antics. She never thinks about anyone but herself. Maverick must be seriously lovesick to fancy Vale, getting no response. Vale started hurling vicious curses at me, circled greater than anti-piracy watermark, circled greater than bookfinder bought heavy checkmark, just pick this one, reliable and foolproof. Ronan pulled me into his embrace, covering my ears. Hush now, don't look, don't listen. The wolf pack finished devouring Vale and Maverick, then turned to stare at Ronan and me with predatory intensity. They're ravenous. Icy gaze sent shivers down my spine. Countless sleepless nights, I'd wake gasping like a drowning man. Drenched in cold sweat from those haunting eyes, Ronan's aura shifted dramatically, his eyes darkening with unfathomable turbulence. He reverted to his true form, steadying me securely on his back. The wolves leapt up at Ronan, trembling in fear before scattering in panicked retreat. Ronan showed them no mercy. He gave chase, his powerful frame cutting across the snowfield, hunting down every last wolf that haunted my nightmares. Buried in tiger fur, a single tear escaped the corner of my eye. Ronan's love forged an armor around me. The filth of past lives could no longer pierce my soul. After the Vale and Maverick incident finally settled, my father started pressuring us to have children. I scoffed. You've been exploiting my husband as your free labor, and now you want me to make you a grandchild. Dream on, he grinned, flashing a perfect set of 8 gleaming white teeth. Damn right I do. Seeing my hesitation, he tempted further. Don't you want a mini tiger cub of your own? You used to love those virtual pet games as a kid. 21. That night, I pestered Ronan to show me his childhood photos. My heart melted looking at the baby tiger in the photo. I held the photo next to Ronan's face, carefully comparing. I muttered, "How did you grow into such a scary-looking hulk?" Ronan tried to defend himself. When have I ever been scary? I let out a dry chuckle. The ache in my waist was proof of his crimes. The more pitifully I cried, the more relentlessly Ronan went at it. He shamelessly leaned in, nibbling my ear. Faye, has no one told you that threats in bed don't count? Then he proved with actions that there's always someone fiercer than the fiercest. After a month of reckless passion, I successfully got pregnant. My father was grinning like an absolute fool. The hand with a knife wound deep enough to reveal bone reached trembling toward my face, only to withdraw at the last moment. Ronan, that look on your face, are you not welcoming our little tiger? He held me close and murmured, "No, I just worry you're pushing yourself too hard. I'll always be Ronan's top priority in everything. Besides, this little rascal's definitely gonna steal my spotlight. Can you blame me for not being thrilled?" The ache in my heart melted away. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ronan rubbed my belly, earnestly lecturing our tiny bean-sized baby. "Be good now. Don't give your mommy any trouble. And most importantly, you must love your mommy just as much as I do." My lips curved into a smile as the air seemed to shimmer with sweetness. The end. Story 2. The day after my husband rented out our house to his first love, a terrifyingly extreme cold weather arrived. In order to curry favor with her, my husband gave away the last remaining food we had, leaving my daughter and me to fend for ourselves. My daughter cried incessantly from hunger. I knelt on the ground, knocking my head until it bled. and demanded harshly why he could be so cruel, but he broke my legs, kicked me out of the house, and I was left to freeze to death outside. When I opened my eyes again, hearing my husband's request to rent the house to his first love's family, I smiled and nodded in agreement. Then I turned around and stuffed the refrigerator with rotten vegetable leaves. In this life, I will enjoy delicious grilled meat and hot pot with my daughter while watching them kill each other and freeze to death. 1. Wife. Haley has just divorced. She's a young girl who's unfamiliar with this place and came to seek my help. I can't be so heartless as to ignore her, can I? My husband said with a worried look on his face in the living room. I stared at him blankly, clutching the keys in my hand, and my body couldn't stop trembling. Seeing that I didn't respond, he couldn't hold back his anger any longer and kicked the sofa violently. Can you stop being so suspicious every day? I grew up with her. I only see her as a sister. Do you want me to just watch her sleep on the streets? There's no room for discussion on this matter. I've already promised to rent the house to her. Give me the keys now. Hearing his familiar roar, I suddenly raised my head and stared at him fixedly. A chill rushed from the soles of my feet all the way to the top of my head. The bone-chilling cold made me feel dazed. The deep-seated cold that had penetrated my bones before I died in my previous life appeared again. Mom and Dad, don't quarrel. My daughter, Giselle, wrinkled her nose, rushed back, and hugged my leg. Her timid eyes made my heart ache. She turned around to hold my husband's hand, but he pushed her away in disgust, and tears welled up in her eyes instantly. Looking at the undisguised disgust in the man's eyes, a layer of cold sweat broke out on my back. It turned out that there really are fathers in this world who don't love their own children. In my previous life, in order to curry favor with his first love, Haley, my husband couldn't wait to give her all the remaining food in the house. He ignored my daughter and me even though we were starving. Haley's son spat on my daughter's face and showed off proudly. Uncle Garrett said that you're just a waste of money. You should have been drowned in the toilet when you were born. Women are born to serve men, and you're just as bitchy as your mother. He ate the food that originally belonged to us mouthful by mouthful, treating us like a joke. Haley stroked her son's head, praised him for scolding us well, and then turned around and snatched away the last heating stove in my room. The relationship between Garrett and me has lasted for more than 30 years. How can you, an outsider, compare to it? You're so naive. I gritted my teeth in hatred and rushed forward to try to take the things back, but my husband broke my legs. My daughter and I were driven out of the house and froze to death in the extremely cold and snowy apocalypse. Fortunately, perhaps even God couldn't stand it anymore and gave me a chance to be reborn. There are still nearly half a month left before the arrival of the extremely cold apocalypse, and I have plenty of time to prepare. This time, I will definitely make these ungrateful people pay for their debts with their blood. I want them to live a life worse than death. 2. I decisively stuffed the keys into my husband's hand, interrupting his hysterical roar. I smiled and said, "What's wrong with that?" At first, I was thinking that the second floor hasn't been lived in for so long and is full of dust. I would clean it for a few days before letting Sister Haley live there. Hearing me say this, my husband was suddenly at a loss for words and looked at me suspiciously. He gave a cold snort, and his face turned from gloomy to sunny. You're right to think that way. We don't have a son to carry on the family line. I've already regarded Haley's son, Easton, as my own child. You have to be nicer to them, mother and son. In the future, he preached arrogantly, and the absurd words coming out of his mouth made me sneer inwardly. Sure enough, Garrett came from the countryside, and the idea of preferring sons over daughters is deeply ingrained in his mind. He has always been resentful that I only gave birth to a daughter. It turned out that he had already regarded his first love's child as his own son so early on. No wonder in my previous life he was so eager to curry favor with them. It was all for his so-called heir to the throne. I smiled perfunctorily at my husband and made an excuse to go grocery shopping and tip my daughter out. As soon as we went out, I noticed that my daughter's eyes were red. She buried her head in my chest and said in a muffled voice, "Mom, doesn't Dad like Giselle? Is Giselle a bad child?" My heart ached slightly. Looking at my little sweetheart's cautious expression, I wished I could cut Garrett, that bastard, into pieces. How could Giselle be a bad child? You're the apple of my eye. Dad is bad, let's not play with him. Okay, I soothed my daughter's emotions and took her to the amusement park to have fun all day long. Only after we were both full did we go to the vegetable market and pick up a few pieces of rotten vegetable leaves and go home. In my previous life, I had the habit of stockpiling goods. The refrigerators on both the upper and lower floors were stuffed full. My favorite thing to do was to stay at home and prepare ingredients. The supplies at home in my previous life could almost feed our family of 3 for a whole 3 months. Unfortunately, in the end, my ungrateful husband gave them all away. Thinking of this, I put all the fresh ingredients in the refrigerator into the trunk of the car and stuffed it back with the rotten vegetable leaves and stinky fish and shrimp I picked up in this life. I want to see how these 2 ungrateful people can survive without the food I prepared when I got home. My husband was slouching on the sofa, happily making a video call. A woman's affected voice came from the phone. Her coquettish tone made me feel goosebumps all over. I could tell it was Haley at once. "Garrett, I don't want to affect the relationship between you and sister-in-law because of me. I'd better rent a house outside." As soon as my husband heard this, he immediately became unhappy. He said anxiously, "How can that be? You're a young girl with a simple mind. It's so easy for you to be deceived in a big city. It's too dangerous. What's more, I'm her husband. She doesn't dare not listen to me." As he said this, he turned his head and gave me a fierce glare, showing his ferocious expression. "Garrett, you've always been the best to me all these years. If you hadn't left back then, we might now." The woman in the video had tears in her eyes. Her inviting and hesitant gaze lingered on Garrett, captivating him completely. I sneered inwardly and pretended to Luke, "Husband, you haven't given me my living expenses recently. The remaining money is only enough to buy these half-price vegetable leaves." Garrett's face froze. He couldn't stand losing face in front of his first love. He grandly took out his salary card from his wallet and threw it in my face. Gritting his teeth to endure the pain in his heart, he said, "Money, money. All you think about is money all day long. I think you've fallen into the money pit. Take it. It's as if I've been treating you unfairly, useless thing." I hated him so much that my teeth were clenched, but I still endured my anger and picked up the salary card. Garrett has always been stingy and never handed over his salary. He only gave me 1,000 yuan as living expenses every month. Now that he took the initiative to give me the money to show off, how could I not make good use of it? Hiding the hatred in my eyes, I ignored his fierce gaze and took my daughter out again. I will definitely make this scumbag man and that bitch woman experience the despair and pain I felt in my previous life. Only then can they pay for their crimes with their blood. 3. When my parents passed away, they left me a shop on a prosperous street, which is worth over 7 million yuan in the market. Before my father died, he insisted that I swear to heaven that I wouldn't tell my husband about their only inheritance, for fear that I would have no way out left. At that time, I was very puzzled. Now I finally understand his good intentions. I went to the real estate agency and asked them to sell this shop as quickly as possible and that it must be a full payment. I also made it clear that if it was sold on the same day, I would give the salesperson a 10% commission, and the commission would decrease by 1% for each day of delay. Money can make the devil turn the millstone. That night, this shop was successfully sold for 6 million yuan after tax, and I received a full 4 million yuan. There are only a little over 10 days left before the extremely cold apocalypse arrives. In the next half-month, the weather will suddenly drop to more than 100 degrees below zero. Passers-by who don't have time to go home will be frozen into human-shaped ice sculptures. The road communication system will be completely paralyzed, and the human population worldwide will decrease rapidly. I hugged my daughter's soft body tightly and made up my mind to use this 5 million plus yuan to create the safest shelter for us. According to my experience in my previous life, the safest place is near the military garrison. I found a single-family villa right next to the army combat team. There are few people around, almost no one lives there, and the rent is very low. I immediately paid the rent for 3 months. Looking at the 3-story villa with a small courtyard, which is nearly 600 square meters, my heart, which had been filled with fear and unease, finally settled down a little. I found the largest decoration company in the city and asked them to replace all the wall materials of the villa with thermostatic ones, and use the most advanced insulation equipment to ensure that the room is warm and comfortable 24 hours a day. I also required that this decoration must be carried out secretly and as quickly as possible. At first, I was worried that the boss would leak the news, but when I put a 3 million yuan check in front of him, he tactfully swallowed his doubts. He looked at me as if I were the god of wealth and repeatedly assured me, "When the money is in place, the people will be in place." In just 1 week, he mobilized all his workers and completed my request at the fastest speed. He transformed the entire villa into a modern high-tech thermostatic room, plus dozens of high-capacity storage batteries. Just then, my dear husband finally thought of me. As soon as I answered the phone, his furious roar resounded throughout the entire villa. "Isla, where the hell have you gone? You haven't been home for over a week. Are you out there looking for another man behind my back? Get back and cook right away. Haley is here. How can you, as a sister-in-law, not show up?" In the chaotic background noise, the sound of a child crying and demanding food came. It was obviously Haley's gluttonous son. Haley's hypocritical words came, "Garrett, don't be angry. Talk to sister-in-law nicely. It won't be good if you get angry." I felt nauseous hearing this and said coldly, "I have something to do outside. You're a grown man with hands and feet. Can't you cook for yourself?" Garrett's voice paused, as if he couldn't believe that I, who had always been obedient to him, would one day dare to talk back to him. The next second, he exploded completely. If you don't come back to cook tonight, you'll bear the consequences." With that, he hung up the phone neatly. My hand holding the phone gradually tightened, and I was so angry that my chest rose and fell. I immediately used his salary card to buy a large number of food items through a large local supermarket's purchasing service, setting the delivery time for 7 days later and the payment method as pay after use. Looking at the continuous consumption reminders on my phone, I felt secretly delighted. In 3 days, when that stingy miser finds out that his card has been maxed out, how wonderful his expression will be. For, during the time I was renovating the villa, the low temperature warning from the Meteorological Bureau had reached its peak. In the scorching summer, the temperature dropped sharply to more than 10 degrees below zero in just half a month. People took off their short sleeves and shorts and put on thick down jackets amidst curses. However, what was even more terrifying was that in the heat of August, it suddenly snowed heavily like goose feathers one early morning. The abnormal weather conditions quickly caused chaos, and many people began to hoard supplies frantically. I deliberately ignored Garrett for a few days and secretly delighted in watching him raging uselessly on the surveillance, taking advantage of this time gap. The supplies I had previously purchased from a large supermarket under the pretext of donating to children in mountainous areas had already arrived. Hundreds of caddies of frozen chicken, duck, fish, and meat, vegetables, dried fruits, flour, rice, prefabricated dishes of various flavors, dozens of cases of instant food, and snack-dried fruits. These things will become the greatest support for my daughter and me to survive in the future extreme cold apocalypse. Considering that the communication system will also be interrupted in a while, I also downloaded hundreds of animated cartoons, movies, and TV shows. I also bought some textbooks and reading materials for my daughter to ensure that we wouldn't be too bored in the villa. In addition, learning from my experience in my previous life, I went to the black market and purchased a self-defense weapon through special channels. I also installed an electric fence around the villa that was powerful enough to electrocute people to prevent evil mind people from coming to steal food. After all, in the apocalypse, the hearts of people are scarier than ghosts. I didn't go home until my husband and his first love's family were starving to death. I carried a few hard-as-iron frozen manta buns, smeared some soot on my face, and went home with a mournful look. As soon as I entered the house, my husband rushed over angrily and tried to hit me, but I was one step ahead of him. I stepped forward and clung tightly to his leg, wailing and crying with tears and snot streaming down my face. "Husband, it's my fault. I've been out for so long trying to buy food for you, but now the prices are soaring," and I managed to grab these few manta buns with all my might, looking at the manta buns covered in dirt. Haley's face turned extremely ugly. However, Easton, who was so hungry that he saw stars, didn't care so much. He snatched them away and ate 2 in just a few bites, choking and stretching his neck. Looking at his voracious eating, a flash of darkness passed through my eyes. Eat your fill so you can go to hell." Seeing my disheveled appearance, Garrett finally didn't land his fist on me. In just a few days, the 3 of them had been living on the rotten vegetable leaves and stinky fish and shrimp in the refrigerator. All 3 of their faces were sallow and emaciated. Now that the temperature has dropped sharply and prices are soaring, everyone has realized the importance of saving their lives. By the time the slow-witted 2 of them realized it, the money in their hands could only barely buy a few bags of instant noodles, not to mention Easton, that glutton who only knew how to eat voraciously. In just 1 week, they had run out of food and supplies. In the extremely cold apocalypse, besides hunger, the most terrifying thing is the extreme low temperature. The heating system in the community has long been frozen and unable to operate. They can only rely on buying underground heating at a high price to get by. However, the price keeps soaring and has already reached tens of thousands of yuan a day, which is obviously beyond what Garrett's wallet can afford. The 3 of them, cold and hungry, curled up in the thin quilt, their lips turning purple and snot and tears flowing down their faces. However, this is just an appetizer I gave them. Something even worse is yet to come. 5. That night, the laxative I put in the steamed buns took effect. The 3 of them vomited and had diarrhea, suffering a great deal. Among them, Haley's son, Easton, was in the worst condition and was already exhausted from diarrhea. Haley was terrified. She held her son and wailed, with big tears dropping onto the floor. She rummaged through the cabinets in a panic but couldn't find any anti-diarrheal medicine. She sobbed pitifully. "Garrett, I beg you to take Easton to the hospital and save him. He's the apple of my eye. How can I live if anything happens to him?" My husband couldn't bear to see his first love cry, but now the weather outside was so cold that it could freeze people to death. The nearest hospital was a full 3 kilometers away, and he couldn't risk his life. The chubby boy clutched his stomach, breaking out in a cold sweat from the pain. I gave him double the dose, ensuring he would suffer a great deal. Looking at his embarrassed and painful appearance, I remembered the scene in my previous life when he punched and kicked my daughter and forced us to drink his urine. His proud face at that time overlapped with his current appearance covered in cold sweat, and I felt a sense of satisfaction in my heart. My husband was so anxious that he paced back and forth, but he still hesitated to go out, seeing his cowardly appearance. Haley gritted her teeth, picked up Easton, and went out. She played the role of a pitiful woman, saying, "Since Garrett doesn't want to, I won't force him. At worst, Easton and I, a widow and her son, will die outside. Anyway, no one in this world really cares about me." This trick always worked on Garrett. He couldn't stand being looked down upon by his first love. The next second, he turned his gaze on me. "Isla, you take Easton to the hospital. I'm the breadwinner of the family and can't afford to collapse. It's different for you. As a useless woman, you're the most suitable to go." Haley also reacted and rushed over to grab my arm tightly, her voice shrill. "Yes, you're the most suitable to take Easton to the hospital. I beg you, sister-in-law." As she spoke, she desperately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to me until her forehead turned blue and purple. I deliberately pretended to be scared and said, "No, no. The temperature outside can freeze people to death. I'll die if I go out." My husband glared at me angrily and stuffed Easton into my arms without giving me a chance to argue. "You bitch, shut up. I told you to go. So go quickly. If Easton can't be cured, don't even think about coming back." A strong hurricane swept in with snow and wind. I shivered from the cold and held the doorknob tightly, pleading, "Husband, please. I've been with you for so many years. You can't treat me like this." Garrett was furious. He raised his hand and slapped me, so hard that I was knocked to the ground. His eyes were fierce as he threatened, "Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and take Easton to the hospital, or you'll be in big trouble." The next second, the door slammed shut, showing no mercy. The expression on my face instantly turned cold, and I stared coldly at the chubby boy curled up in my arms, his face pale from the pain. Even at this moment, he was still swearing at me rudely. "Damn woman. What are you looking at? Hurry up and take me to the hospital. If you delay my treatment, I'll make Uncle Garrett beat you to death." He waved his fist as if he was about to hit me. However, I raised my foot and kicked him hard, sending him tumbling down the stairs. A pig-like scream rang out. Easton lay on his back on the stairs, hugging his leg and wailing. I stared at him expressionlessly. Remembering the tragic ending of my previous life when I had my legs broken and was thrown out and frozen to death, I felt no ripple in my heart. I put laxative instead of rat poison in the steamed buns so that he could also experience the feeling I had before I died, lying alone in the ice and snow, gradually freezing until my whole body was stiff, and ending my life in extreme fear and cold. 6. Without hesitation, I got into a modified SUV. The warmth in the car instantly wrapped around me, and my frozen body gradually warmed up. Before the heavy snow blocked the road, I drove back to the villa I had already prepared. As soon as I came back, my daughter, Giselle, couldn't wait to rush up and hug me, clinging to my leg and refusing to let go. "Mom, why did you take so long to come back? I was so scared when you left me alone at home." Looking at the sincere concern on her face, my broken heart was filled again. I picked her up, kissed her little face, and solemnly promised, "Mom won't go out again. I'll stay here with Giselle." "Okay." My daughter nodded vigorously and danced happily. She ran around the room like the most carefree child in the world. In my previous life, she was beaten to the verge of death by her biological father. She watched helplessly as the food that originally belonged to us was given away by him. She was also forced to endure hunger and was humiliated by that beast, Easton, and finally died in pain. I didn't have the ability to protect her, and I regretted it until I died. I couldn't accept that my husband, who I had loved for more than 10 years, for the sake of his first love, pushed us to the brink of death and was even heartless enough to kill his own flesh and blood, just because Giselle was a girl. Now that I think about it, I realize that some men simply don't deserve to be fathers, but it doesn't matter. From now on, I will love my child even more and make up for the love she has missed. My Giselle. Mom will definitely do her best to protect you in this life and won't let you be hurt even a little bit. 7. In order to deceive Garrett and Haley, I had been eating coarse food with them for several days. I only dared to take out a few ham sausages to satisfy my hunger in the middle of the night. My daughter, Giselle, had also been eating instant food in the villa for several days and was already extremely hungry. I couldn't wait to cook the rice. I selected a piece of streaky pork with a good balance of fat and lean meat, took out the stew pot, and started making braised pork. I also stir-fried 2 vegetarian dishes and specially killed a Christian carp to make soup. Half an hour later, a steaming meal of 3 dishes and 1 soup was served on the table. My daughter buried her head in eating, with a happy smile on her face, smelling the aroma of the food. I felt alive again. I quickly finished 2 bowls of rice and cleared the food on the table. After the meal, I found a lot of snacks and also made a small cake for my daughter. The sweet cream melted on my tongue, and the warm air blown by the comfortable constant temperature air conditioner made me feel relaxed. After eating and drinking my fill, I snuggled up with my daughter on the living room sofa to watch cartoons. There was a large basket of snacks and drinks beside me, and I ate without any scruples. At night, I turned on the surveillance equipment at home, and the scene inside shocked me. In the picture, Haley, who had been crying before, somehow had already rolled onto the bed with my husband. The two of them were having a passionate encounter and were completely carried away. They didn't notice at all that Easton was frozen like a popsicle on the stairs. 10 minutes later, they finally stopped panting. The woman gently traced circles on Garrett's chest with her finger, her tone a bit mocking. "Garrett, do you think that old and unattractive bitch won't really freeze to death outside in this icy and snowy weather?" My husband sneered. "I wish she would freeze to death outside. She's a woman with a ruined figure and a sallow face who can't even give birth to a son. I really regret marrying her." When the topic of sons came up, Haley finally showed some concern. "I wonder how Easton is doing in the hospital now. I'm really worried about him." Although she said so, she lay motionless in the man's arms and didn't want to go out and check at all. After all, what mattered most to her was herself. Otherwise, how could she have been so relieved to let me take Easton out to see a doctor alone? I had already eaten and drunk my fill, while the two of them were so hungry that they were dizzy. They rummaged through the cabinets looking for food, however. The large house was empty, and they couldn't even find half a pack of instant noodles. Helplessly, my husband took out his phone and begged the neighbors in the homeowners group for some food. However, his message disappeared without a trace. Nowadays, prices are skyrocketing, and every family is afraid that they won't have enough food to eat. How could they share it with others? He was so angry that his beard and eyes were twitching, and he cursed the neighbors for being heartless at home. Just then, his phone dinged. Messages about his salary card being maxed out popped up frantically, making his eyes turn red with anger. Looking at the words "balance is zero" in the text message reminder, after failing to call me several times, he couldn't hold back anymore. He threw his phone on the ground and cursed, "Isla, you damned bitch. You actually spent so much money behind my back. Do you want to die?" After venting his anger, he slumped to the ground, hugging his growling stomach. Finally, Haley took out her savings and offered a high price of 10,000 yuan in the homeowners group to barely exchange for a small bag of expired bread. The two of them managed to finish the meal with some rotten vegetable leaves. I lay comfortably on the sofa, drinking hot red wine, eating pizza, and watching them with pale faces gnawing on the unpalatable and moldy bread. I felt extremely satisfied. 8. At noon the next day, when I leisurely cooked a delicious meal for my daughter and myself and slowly sipped milk, Haley's call came in again. My husband's voice was obviously much weaker, but when he heard the sound of me gulping down milk, he immediately raised his voice. "Isla, where are you? I'm almost starving to death at home, and you're out here feasting and having a good time behind my back. Do you want to die?" I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I made a video call to the other side and showed them the abalone, crayfish, skewers, fruit platter, a large cup of milk tea, and the steaming hot pot bubbling on the table in front of me. I deliberately showed them from all angles so that they could clearly see what I was eating. Both of them let out sharp screams and wished they could pounce on the screen immediately. "Damn woman, where are you? Are you enjoying yourself behind my back? Where the hell did you go and how did you get so much delicious food? Send me some right away, right now." In the weather of over -100 degrees Celsius outside, I leisurely poured oysters, steaks, and sliced leopard coral groupers into the hot pot one by one. I ignored them and put pieces of meat slices covered in soup into my mouth, letting out a sigh of great enjoyment, shaking the fresh fruit juice in my hand. I turned my head to meet the two pairs of eyes that were glowing green with hunger. "Do you want to eat?" "Huh." They both nodded vigorously, nodding like pounding garlic. I said indifferently, "You two cheated on me behind my back, and you still want me to risk my life to bring you food. Do you think I'm stupid?" My husband's face changed. He was just about to get angry when he saw that I was about to hang up the phone, afraid that I would really ignore him. He, who was always arrogant, knelt down on the ground with a thud and begged me, crying, "Wife, I was wrong. I was just bewitched for a moment and was seduced by this bitch. Please forgive me. I beg you, bring me some food. I'm cold and hungry now. We've been married for more than 10 years, and our relationship." Hearing him say this, Haley's eyes widened like copper bells. She angrily cursed, "Are you a man? Do you dare to do it but not admit it?" The next second, Garrett frantically winked at her, indicating that he was acting, but Haley didn't care and demanded, "Where's my son, Easton? What did you do with him? Let him come out and see me now." I waved my hand and said, "Your son is probably frozen to death outside by now. He was shouting so loudly that day. Didn't you hear him?" A trace of uneasiness flashed across Haley's face. Of course, she couldn't have heard him because at that time, she had already been having an intimate encounter with Garrett in bed. Her face showed fear. She suddenly opened the door and saw Easton, who was frozen like a popsicle. The woman's shrill scream rang out over the phone. Haley completely broke down. She rushed over like a madwoman and cried heart-wrenchingly, son, what's wrong with you? Don't scare Mom, you damned woman. How could you be so heartless? He's just a child." I looked at her expressionlessly and felt no emotion in my heart. In my previous life, when my daughter was killed, she was even younger than that beast, Easton. At that time, why didn't she think that Giselle was also a child? They deserved all of this. 9. After seeing Easton's body with his own eyes, my husband unexpectedly calmed down. He finally realized that I was no longer the cowardly Isla I used to be and wouldn't let him manipulate me anymore. Gritting his teeth, he started crying and apologizing to me, but I wasn't falling for it. I crossed my legs and showed a playful smile, saying, "Okay, you go and beat your dear sister. The harder you hit her, the happier I'll be. If I'm in a good mood, I'll consider bringing you some food." As soon as I finished speaking, Haley rushed up and started cursing at me, as if she wanted to vent all her grievances on me. Hearing that he had to beat the first love he had been thinking about for years, my husband's eyes flashed with hesitation and entanglement. He looked pained and remorseful. "Isla, how could you become so vicious? Even if you hate Haley in your heart, you can't come up with such a cruel way to punish her. Are you still human?" I didn't answer. I just raised my phone and showed him the cabinet full of reserved food behind me. My husband clearly swallowed his saliva and was swayed. I took the opportunity to provoke him. "Since in your heart, Haley is more important than your life, I won't force you to hit her. That's it. I'm hanging up." My husband panicked completely. He quickly stopped me. "Don't hang up. I'll do as you say." "Okay, Garrett." "Are you crazy?" Haley's eyes widened in disbelief, and fear and disappointment appeared in her eyes. She couldn't believe that the man who had always been obedient and attentive to her was now going to hit her for the sake of food. The next second, the beatings that were inflicted on me in my previous life were all returned to Haley. In order to survive, my husband exerted all his strength. He grabbed her by the hair and slapped her face one after another fiercely. Her face swelled up instantly, with blood at the corner of her mouth, looking extremely miserable. Seeing that I didn't call to stop him, my husband became even more ruthless. His eyes turned red from the beating. He raised his foot and kicked the woman's stomach hard. Ignoring the shrill screams in his ears, he actually crushed Haley's ankle bone. Only when the clear sound of bones breaking echoed did I finally show a smile. Haley was beaten to the point of being on the verge of death. She lay on the ground like a dead dog, unable to even cry out in pain, and fainted from the intense pain directly. My husband smiled obsequiously and rubbed his hands, saying, "Are you satisfied with this?" I nodded and pretended to be in a difficult situation, saying, "You did a good job. But now the road is blocked by heavy snow outside. I really can't do anything about it." My husband's face changed, and he finally realized that he had been tricked by me. He gritted his teeth in anger, with the veins on his forehead bulging. He roared like a madman, "Isla, you bitch, you clearly promised that as long as I beat her, you would bring us food. How could you go back on your word?" I didn't care and said, "So what, when you kicked me out of the house? Why didn't you think that I might die outside? Moreover, I'm just giving back to you exactly what you did to me in the past. Before I died in my previous life, I knelt in front of the door of our house and kowtowed to them again and again, begging them to save my dying daughter. I kowtowed until my head was bleeding, saying, "I'm begging you, Giselle is your own daughter. How can you have the heart to let her freeze to death? It doesn't matter if I die. I'm begging you to let Giselle in. She's only 8 years old. How can she bear it in this icy and snowy weather?" But he shook off my hand violently, looking disgusted as if he had touched garbage. "The loser you gave birth to as a bitch is just a waste of food even if she's alive. It's better to save the food for my Haley. I've wanted to divorce you for a long time. If it weren't for the inheritance left by your parents, I wouldn't have endured you for so long. Isla, take your little wretch and go die quickly." He took away all the remaining food. Extinguishing all hope of survival, I held my daughter and curled up in the ice and snow, and was frozen to death. The bone-chilling cold that I felt before I died in my previous life returned. I couldn't stop shivering all over my body. I listened expressionlessly to his hoarse accusations and curses. I hung up the phone without hesitation. "Blood debts must be paid in blood. It's only natural. This is the evil you've done, and you deserve everything that happens to you." 10. The temperature was getting lower and lower, and the food was almost gone. During the day, the community was always quiet, as if it were a deserted land with no one living there. At night, there were always successive screams and sounds of fighting. Some people became executioners who killed others at night. Throwing objects from high-rise buildings in the community was not uncommon, and with a little attention, you would find that it wasn't just objects being thrown from the high-rise buildings, but sometimes people as well. In the apocalypse, the human heart is the most vulnerable thing to be tested. Morality and the legal system could no longer restrain the people who were driven crazy by hunger at this moment. I once again felt lucky that the safe house I had chosen was surrounded by few people and was adjacent to a military camp. At least, I didn't have to worry about my personal safety. On the 15th day of the extreme low temperature, the two of them hadn't eaten for 3 days. Haley, who had witnessed her son's body with her own eyes, had now completely gone crazy. She lay on the ground, constantly cursing my husband and me. She said all the most unpleasant words and howled hoarsely. My husband was extremely annoyed. At first, he pretended to comfort her out of old feelings, but later he simply stopped pretending. He actually wanted to throw Haley off the balcony, which was 5 floors high. "Garrett, you beast. I must have been blind to have fallen for you. How could you treat me like this?" The woman was in a crazy state, clinging tightly to the man's arm, with deep hatred in her eyes. Half of her body was pushed out of the balcony, and the biting cold wind beneath her feet made her shiver all over. The strong will to survive made her eyes bloodshot, and she held onto my husband tightly and didn't dare to let go. My husband was delirious from hunger and said expressionlessly, "You can't even walk, and you can't go out to find food for me. What's the use of keeping you? Why don't you go and be reunited with your dead son underground?" As soon as he finished speaking, he unhesitatingly shook off the woman's hand and pushed her straight off the balcony. After the woman's pig-like screams, there was a loud thud, and she completely fell silent. I closed my eyes and turned off the surveillance video. 11. When I turned on the surveillance again, I saw my emaciated husband squatting on the ground, eating the leather sofa. He was already delirious from hunger, since he had killed his so-called white moonlight, the woman he had always cherished in his heart. With his own hands, he had been suffering from insomnia all night long, sitting blankly in the room with his scarlet eyes open. Sometimes when he went crazy, he would hit the wall hard with his head and let out inhuman howls from his mouth. I was terrified when I saw this and knew that he had completely lost his mind. My daughter beside me threw herself into my arms. Over the past month or so, I had raised her to be plump and healthy. When she ran, the flesh on her cheeks would jiggle a few times. She also smiled more often. Her personality had gradually become more outgoing from being timid and shy at the beginning. Usually, she would thoughtfully help me with the housework. The son of the white moonlight spat on my daughter's face and showed off proudly. "Uncle Garrett said that you're just a loser. You should have been drowned in the toilet when you were born. Women are born to serve men, and you're as cheap as your mother." She just lowered her head and played with the toy in her hand, saying softly, "Daddy doesn't like me and Mommy, so I don't like Daddy either. No matter where he goes, I only need Mommy." She was wearing a beautiful princess dress, with a naive and happy smile on her face. She was no longer the pitiful look in her previous life when she was so hungry that her cheeks were sunken and she was on the verge of death. It's hard for me to describe the moment of being moved in words. I just felt that all the previous regrets had been made up for, and my heart was filled. In the next 3 months, I stayed with my daughter in the villa safely and steadily, and every day was pleasant and leisurely. Until the 4th month, the surface temperature began to warm up, the thick layer of snow gradually melted, and the outside world regained its vitality and vigor. Because it was close to the military camp, my daughter and I became among the first batch of people to be rescued. There was still a lot of food left in the villa. I only kept the amount that was basically needed for my daughter and me to survive, and donated the rest so that they could help other people in need. When the police called me to claim my husband's body, I went immediately. I agreed to cremate him on the spot and didn't even give him an extra glance. My expressionless look made the words of comfort from the staff get stuck in their throats. My husband was dead, and his house naturally fell to me. I sorted out the remaining money in my hand, after spending more than 4 million yuan on supplies. There was still about 1 million yuan in cash left, counting the house worth 4 million yuan. Even if I didn't go out to work, I could support my daughter independently. Later, because of the large amount of food I donated, which helped many people in the urban area, I was also recognized as an outstanding citizen by the government. On the day I came out after receiving the award, I held my daughter and looked at the clear blue sky. The last trace of darkness in my heart was also dispelled. Every day from now on will be a good day.